Hello and welcome to the Countdown to The Force Awakens. This is a program where, in the weeks leading up to the release of Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens, I'll be taking a look at an episode in the Star Wars saga. In the previous episode, Episode 1, I took a look at Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This week, I take a look at Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, I expressed in my in the previous episode, I added the link in the description box below, that Phantom Menace clearly did not live up to expectations. I think it also set up the Star Wars fan base to lower their expectations. I mean, seriously lower them, because the prequels are not going to live up to what, in our minds and hearts, we imagined what the prequel trilogy should be about. You could go on a whole litany and write 10 novels about what we think the prequels should have been about. But alas, that'll just be dismissed as fan fiction. In episode 1, I found that one to be kind of dull. No, not kind of, but pretty dull. And it really didn't need to exist. There were events that could have been just totally glossed over and you wouldn't have missed a beat. But that's how George decided to start the saga, and that's what we are stuck with, since obviously that is considered canon. Canon meaning that it is part of the recognized film franchise, and so events that happened in the prequels obviously will happen in the entire cinematic universe and can be referenced in the new trilogy and beyond. So here we are in May of 2002, and the arrival of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, leading up to Attack of the Clones, after The Phantom Menace opened, and it ended up becoming the top box office film of the year, and I believe the global box office as well. Everybody knew Episode 2 was coming, but we didn't know what the story was going to be about. Basically, fans were hoping for the Clone Wars, but we weren't sure what was going on. But in the ensuing months and years leading up to the release of Episode 2, it was revealed that Episode 2 will deal with the love story between Padme Amidala and Anakin Skywalker. So that was actually a very intriguing idea. The Star Wars films have never been known to really focus on one particular element. I mean, this would be interesting if George just put on the brakes and just totally spent a movie just exploring the wooing and the romance and the love between these two characters, which would pay off in the eventual, well, sorry, it's a spoiler, eventual tragedy that befalls them in Episode 3, or at least what we hope is the tragedy that's going to befall them in Episode 3, because obviously those things are alluded to in the original trilogy. So this could be a cool idea. So in time we learned that George actually brought in a co-writer for the first time in the prequel trilogy. Jonathan Hales, who previously wrote some episodes of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which is a solid and entertaining series. If you've never seen it, it's worth checking out. So there was some hope that it was like, oh, maybe he'll be able to correct all the dialogue issues that people had in the first movie that were pretty cringeworthy, and maybe he'd be able to actually do some solid stuff and really create some memorable moments. As it turns out, that was kind of true to a point. As we get closer to the release, it is announced that the title of the film is Attack of the Clones. So, I mean, there was an uproar saying people thinking that it was a stupid title, but again, it lives up to the serialized titles of the films, and it works. So obviously that gets the ball rolling and the ideas flowing. That it's a Attack of the Clones. Oh great, we're going to see the Clone Wars. Yes, cool. And then we see the trailer. The trailer comes out, or it might have been even a teaser trailer where you hear Yoda say, he's like, "Begun the Clone Wars have." It's like, yes, we're getting the Clone Wars. This is going to be awesome. So Attack of the Clones finally arrives, and I would have to say, expectations going in, I really didn't know what was going to go down, because outside of knowing this is going to be a romance in the Clone Wars, is going to be evolved to how is this all going to come together. But while Attack of the Clones, I found much more entertaining than Episode 1. This one was like almost 80% filler and only 20% important story elements. There was so much that went on in here that you were like, yeah, why this isn't really necessary. But I usually try to avoid spoilers, but can't avoid it in this situation. Sorry. So if you haven't seen Attack of the Clones, stop now, then come back later and watch it. Watch this, I'm sorry. Events that we were expecting to see, obviously, is the Clone Wars. But the Clone Wars didn't really kick in until the end of the movie, which was rather disappointing. Things that we weren't expecting to get answers to was the origin of Boba Fett. I didn't know we needed to see an origin of Boba Fett. And we're introduced to Boba Fett as a kid and his father's Jango Fett, and we get a very out there storyline about how Jango is the source of the clones, and Boba Fett was a gift to him, and he's so it's like, okay, and then this kid's gonna grow up to be his name is Boba, so he's gonna grow up to be Boba Fett, and that was just kind of an unnecessary story beat, and it felt like it was just thrown in there just to give Obi-Wan something to do. The story involves that a plot to assassinate Padme is taking place on Coruscant, and after that is thwarted by our daring duo of Obi-Wan and young Anakin, they send them off, Padme and Anakin, off planet to get away to keep her safe. And in the meantime, Obi-Wan goes on a mission of his own to investigate some strange dealings involving Cypher Diaz and some operation on some other planet. So that's where the story starts. And then from there, it's just key plot points that Lucas hits on, but then the rest of it is just filler. I mean, some of the filler is entertaining, but obviously not really necessary. I mean, I kind of enjoyed the opening chase scene, which was cool, but again, wasn't really necessary. The whole third act, which I kind of enjoyed, the Ray Harryhausen throwback fight in the arena. I know a lot of people thought it was dumb, but I really enjoyed that part. That was kind of fun. And then, of course, the grand finale of the battle on the planet that involved the clone troopers and against the Trade Federation. That's who it was, and that taking place on a desert planet, which I thought was great. But there were other things that were thrown in there that was... One in particular that I thought was really cool was when Anakin goes back to Tatooine to find his mother. And this sets off his journey to the dark side, and it was like a great scene. You could really see how this is developed, how he's going to turn, how fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And that how those moments are going to be leading to this. And when his mother dies in his arms, and he goes in a rage and kills an entire clan of Tusken Raiders. That was a great scene. But then we get an unfortunate scene that follows with clunky dialogue that should have been a very powerful scene, and it was just like ruined by bad dialogue. And another thing was obviously the love relationship between Anakin and Padme was supposed to be explored in this one, but that also came off as clunky and in a young adult fashion. Now, interesting enough, in Collider's Jedi Council episode, Freddie Prinze Jr. was a guest, and he he perfectly summarized what the prequels were, and it was actually the prequels were the young adult version of Star Wars, before anybody was really doing young adult movie adaptations, before Hunger Games, before Twilight. And in hindsight, if you look at them, it's like, yeah, they do feel like young adult novels with bad dialogue, cheesy moments, and that's how the romance plays off as a young adult version of a romance. It was just so clunky, poorly written, cringeworthy dialogue. I hate sand. I mean, come on, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, and as that whole sand monologue, it was like, oof, and stuff like that. But in the end, Attack of the Clones was diverting entertainment, I guess you could say. It was just like, yeah, throw it in, just let all the spectacle take in, and then move on and forget about it. Like I said, there's only a few elements that I really hone in on in episode 2 that I remember. There was a cool Easter egg involving the Death Star, and oh, that was neat. But overall, it accomplished what it needed to in setting some things up, but overall, it was, as I mentioned earlier, pretty much dispensable. There were key plot points that sure could have been easily just condensed and shown in episode 3, and you wouldn't have missed a beat. I mean, we found out where the clones came from. We didn't need a whole subplot involving an investigation, finding where the clones came from or anything like that. I mean, it was interesting, and the romance obviously was important, but I just wish it was better written and came off better instead of just kind of hokey. And then we get other things, but at least we got the big Jedi fight at the end. All the Jedi coming together into the arena and fighting. You get to see Mace Windu in action, and Mace Windu being Samuel L. Jackson, and but overall, I guess the other thing was Yoda. We finally get to see Yoda in action. Yoda with his lightsaber, which was great. I really enjoyed it, but that was the best part of the fight between Anakin and Count Dooku. Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee. I didn't like the rather heavy-handed irony. Well, quote unquote, it was supposed to be ironic or coincidence that the fate of his hand is the same fate that befell Luke and again himself. And it's kind of funny because when that happened, I kind of laughed when when Dooku cut his hand off. And I'm like thinking, twice in his life, it's like I was thinking, John McClane, what are the odds that the same thing happens to the same guy twice? He had his hand cut off by Dooku, and then he has had his hand cut off again by Luke Skywalker, his son. Come on, George, you're really, really shoving it in there, and you don't need to. I'm sure you meant for that to be a cool moment, but that just came off as hokey. But performance-wise, uneven. Hayden Christensen, when I heard that he was cast as Anakin Skywalker, I immediately went to check out a film called Life as a House with Kevin Kline, and he's got chops. He could act. But as we've seen, Lucas can't really, it seems, properly direct actors to get the best performances, and the actors were just saying their lines and delivering the performance they have without getting the proper direction. I think that's why these three in the acting department are lacking in comparison to 4, 5, and 6. I mean, in general, the performances are fine. Ewan McGregor is coming into his own as a young Obi-Wan, and we can totally see the nuances of Sir Alec Guinness in there. Natalie Portman is a little better here than she was in episode 1, but there was one key moment that I thought was hilarious, and I'm not the only one. I remember when the movie came out and seeing with the audience, there was a moment where she falls out of a gunship, and a trooper comes up there, asks her if she's all right, and the way she says "uh-huh," she's like, it just came off as so funny that I think they actually ADR'd it and redid it in the eventual DVD Blu-ray release. So yeah, so moments like that. Come on, George. Sorry, your game. So Attack of the Clones. I would, looking back, I probably gave it about a 7 out of 10, and I would still stick with that 7 out of 10. I totally think it's a dispensable episode, but I still found a lot of entertainment value in it. I mean, I could watch the ending all day. The last 25 minutes of it, just the battle scenes at the end, are great. And the moment where Anakin goes to find his mom, I could watch that part, and then the opening part with the with the chase scene, that's fine. But a lot of the other elements I could just totally do without. So we're getting things that we wanted to see, but we're just not there yet. So that just leaves episode 3. So hopefully episode 3 would actually give us everything we were hoping for. We know that the Clone Wars have just begun, and Anakin and Padme have just gotten married in secret at the end, and a clone army has been created to help the Republic fight off the Separatists. And we know that these guys are actually going to be the bad guys, because they're getting into Star Destroyer type ships. But just like episode 1, it was disappointing, but more entertaining, but still not living up to expectations at all. So again, we're residing in the fact that Star Wars is not going to be what we as fans hope for, and it's just going to be good enough. So that's episode 2, Attack of the Clones, the middle episode in the prequel trilogy. And we only have one episode left, episode 3, and everyone knows at the time, episode 3 is going to be the last one. After that, no more Star Wars films. So hopefully, praying that episode 3 brings the saga to a powerful conclusion. So, have you seen episode 2, Attack of the Clones? What did you think? Am I off base? Do you share the same opinions? Is it your favorite in the prequels? What say you? Please comment below. I've added the trailer for episode 2, the link for the trailer in the description box, and I also added the link to my countdown review of episode 1 in the description box. If you like my review, please hit the like button below. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do, so you can stay on top of my reviews, in particular the countdowns as they continue to lead up to The Force Awakens. So until next time, remember, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.